Hi, I'm James Catherall, founder of Catherall Audio, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to make recordings with the Yamaha TF. There are 3 ways to do it. There's an easy way, a medium way, and a hard way. I'm going to talk through all 3 of them. I'm going to let you know what gear you need to make each of them happen and show you how to set all of it up. So for method number 1, this is what we'll call the easy way. So all you need to do is get an external drive. So either an external hard drive or an external SSD that you can plug into the USB port right here that says iPad on it. You just want to make sure that you don't use a flash drive, also known as a thumb drive. Those don't have fast enough write capabilities to keep up with the audio stream that's being output from the Yamaha TF. So if you do use it, you'll most likely end up with skips and pops and audio dropouts in your recording. There is an official list from Yamaha of all the approved external drives that have been tested by them, and I'll put that in the description down below. But essentially any hard drive or solid state drive that you can plug into this USB port should work just fine. For this video, I'm just going to use a flash drive just so I can demonstrate the steps you need to go through to be able to start recording onto the external drive. So I have it ready right here. I'm going to plug it into the iPad port. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to go to the top of the touch screen on the TF where there's the little cassette tape. If it's plugged in and the Yamaha TF can correctly see the drive, you should see a little USB on the bottom of that cassette tape. I'm going to tap that, and then I'm going to go to where it says input and output, and this is where we can record on the left side. There's a little window that says record. And at the top left of it, you can select what you want to record. So by default, it's going to have the stereo left-right, but you can also tap that drop-down menu and you can choose a pair of mono aux sends or a pair of the matrices. Now, once I've done that, below there, it's going to show me where that recording's going to go. The first one says to host with return 33 and 34. I'm going to talk about that one in a later method, so for now we're not going to worry about that. But below that, it says iPad, and that's where we've plugged in this flash drive, is in the USB port that says iPad on it. And then to the right of that, you can see the levels from that output that's going to be getting recorded. And then you have a fader next to that, so you can make it louder or softer to make sure that you're not clipping and you're not sending too much signal during that recording. Now below that, there's 2 buttons we have to press before it's going to start recording. We want to push the record button, which is just going to enable recording. It won't actually start recording yet. Then when you want to actually start recording, you're going to push the play button. Now that'll truly start the recording to your external drive, and you'll see the counter at the bottom will start counting up to let you know the length of the recording that you've just started. Now, once you've started recording, if you want to pause it, you just press the pause button, and that's going to keep it all in the same file. So you'll only have one recording file with pauses and breaks in between. If you want to stop it, you can push the stop button, and that's going to end that file. And then if you record again, it's going to create a second file. To make this whole process even easier, you can assign these recording functions to the user-defined keys. All you need to do to set this up is tap the gear at the top of the screen, go to the menu that says user-defined controls. We're going to go to keys, and then you pick the key that you want. I'm going to do A. And then once you get to this menu, there's a few options here. So we're going to go to where it says recorder on the far left, and on the far right, if you want to use up 2 buttons to do exactly what we just did, then you can set one up for record and set one up for play. So you can push one button to record enable and then the other button to actually start the recording. But if you want to turn this into a 1-button process, there's a couple options for that. First is to select the record and start function. So with 1 button press, it's going to enable recording and actually start the recording. So you don't need to worry about going to this menu at all to start the recording. The only thing you have to do is then go into that recording menu to stop the recording as soon as you're finished. The other function is the auto record one. So now it still only takes 1 button press to start the recording. And then if you push the button again, then it's going to separate and start a new recording. And so you can just keep pushing that button to start new recordings over and over and over again. So it'll just create a bunch of different record files every time you push that button. And that's really it. So it's going to create a 24-bit WAV file at 48 kilohertz sample rate. What makes it easy is all you really need is an external drive, you plug it into that iPad slot, and then it's ready to start recording. The only drawback from this is it only creates a single stereo recording of whatever outputs that you choose. So you don't get any multi-track, you can't get in and affect each channel individually and try and mix things and do things at that level. It's just going to give you a single stereo file from that output that you chose. Now let's move on to the medium difficulty option. We're going to be using the Yamaha TF as an audio interface with our computer. So for this option, all you need outside of the Yamaha TF is a USB cable, a computer, and recording software. For this video, I'm going to be using Logic Pro to set all of this up. You can use basically any recording software to do this, whether it's on Windows or Mac OS. For this video, I'm going to be using Mac OS and Logic Pro to set all of this up. So to start, we're going to take our USB cable and we're going to plug that into the back of the TF in the USB port where it says to host. And then we're going to take the other end and we're going to plug that into the computer that we want to record on. We're going to do one more thing on the TF before we head over to our computer. So the way this works is it's using what are called direct outs from the Yamaha TF to then send a signal out to your computer. So you'll be able to do this and be able to use the Yamaha TF in its normal function. So you can be using it for a live venue and a live performance and record that live performance on the computer at the same time. So we're going to take a look at the direct outs on the channel strips. I'm going to go to channel 1 and I'm going to tap at the bottom here. And then at the bottom of this screen, we're going to see where it says direct out. We want to make sure that that's turned on. By default, it should be turned on all of the channels. So if you don't want that on, you just need to tap that and that'll turn off the direct out for that specific channel. From there, we can choose the patch point of the direct out. So it starts by default at the pre-digital gain, which means it'll essentially be an entirely unprocessed signal. The only thing that's going to be affecting that channel is the analog gain, and that's it. It won't be affected by the phase swapping, it won't be affected by the digital gain or any of your other processing. Then the second option is the pre-high pass filter, which means it's going to be affected by the digital gain and the phase flipping button. The next option is pre-fader, so that means it's going to be affected by the EQ, the gate, and the compressor. And then the final option is the post on, which means it's going to be affected by these on and off buttons on all 32 channels, as well as the auto mixer on the first 8 channels. So you just want to make sure you have that set up correctly for all of your channels. I usually leave it on pre-digital gain, just so I have a completely unaffected signal going into my mixing software. But the other options can be useful if you want to print some of that processing onto your recording. You just have to remember that once that's in, it's in forever. So if you print the EQ settings into that recording in your mixing software, you can't undo that. So that's why usually it's nice to do the pre-digital gain, so you don't have to worry about any of that processed signal going into your mixing software. Now from here, we have everything set up the way we want it on the Yamaha TF. The next step is to go over to our computer and get everything set up in our mixing software. Now I'm at my computer. Let's finish everything up inside of Logic Pro. First thing we need to do is create our audio channels. There are 34 channels available from the Yamaha TF that you can record inside of your DAW. So I want to create 34 channels, and there are a couple things inside of Logic that can make this a lot quicker and a lot easier. First, let's look over here on the left side where it says audio input. I want to start with input 1. And then I want to have this ascending checkbox checked, and we'll talk about why in a second. At the bottom of that, I want to check the device. I want to make sure the device right here says Yamaha TF. That means that the TF is set as my audio interface. If it doesn't say Yamaha TF, you want to click on the arrow. And for output and input device, you want to have it set as the Yamaha TF, especially the input device. There's a couple reasons why you might want to have the output device set as something different if you know what you're using it for and why you want to do that. Otherwise, it's best just to have both of those set as the Yamaha TF. And then you'll click apply, and then you can close this menu. Next, I'm going to look at the audio output. And I want to set up one of the really cool things that you could do with the Yamaha TF, and that's called a virtual sound check. And what that means is I can take a recording of my band or whatever ensemble I'm recording in through all of the channels, and then I can play it back through the speakers at whatever venue I'm at without anybody being present. So I can dial in my mix, I can dial in EQs and compressors and all of that on the TF mixer without anybody being present. So to set that up on the output side, I want to, instead of doing the stereo output, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to mono, and then I'm going to select output 1. And we'll talk about what that does in a minute. I want to also have ascending box checked, and I want to have record enable checked. Just makes it a little bit easier in the process. Now at the bottom of this is where the important part comes in. Number of tracks to create. Right now it says 1. I want to double click that, and I'm going to type in 34. So now what it's gonna do, instead of creating just one audio channel and then me having to repeat this over and over and over again for all 34 channels, I'm just gonna tell it to create 34 channels right now, and then it's gonna go ascending for input 1. So it creates one channel and does input 1. And then for channel 2, it's gonna automatically use input 2, channel 3 for input 3, and so on and so forth, all the way down to 34. And then the outputs are gonna do the same thing because I have that ascending box checked. If you don't wanna do the virtual sound check and you're just trying to create something that you're mixing inside of your DAW and that's it, you can set this to the stereo output and uncheck the ascending box, and then you're good to go. Now we hit create, and boom. I've got 34 audio channels, all record enabled, ready to go inside of Logic Pro. Now, one more thing before I actually hit record. The Yamaha TF only supports 48 kilohertz sample rate, and there'll be a warning on the Yamaha TF. There's gonna be a little window that pops up to let you know that there's a computer connected with a mismatched sample rate. So to change that in Logic Pro, in the newest update, 11.1, it actually makes it really easy to switch the sample rate. I'm gonna go up here to what's called the LCD display at the top. I'm gonna click this drop-down menu. I'm gonna do customize control bar and display, and then right here under display, I have sample rate and buffer size. I'm gonna check that box. And now in the LCD, I can see my sample rate and my buffer size, which are both really important when you're doing live recording. So I'm gonna click here. Right now it's 44.1. I'm gonna switch it to 48, and it's good to go. And then the buffer size is also important. Without getting super deep and technical into what it is, the bigger the number that is, the easier it is on your computer. So if you don't have a very fast or strong computer, then you might want to have that set to a big number. If you do have a really fast and a really strong computer, you can try setting this to smaller numbers, and it just makes it so the latency when you're recording is smaller. But it does make your computer work harder if it's a smaller number. So just something to keep in mind. If you're not on Logic 11.1, you need to go up to the top left where it says File, go down to Project Settings, and then click Audio. Then this menu will pop up, and this shows you your sample rate. So this is tied to the project, and I want to change that so that this project will be the correct sample rate. And then I'm going to close. And from there, you're ready to record. And I have one mic plugged in here on channel 1. I can tap that, and that's my channel 1. You also notice we went all the way down to channels 33 and 34, even though there's only 32 inputs on the Yamaha TF. And 33 and 34, if you remember earlier in the video, I talked about on that record screen, it said that it's going to send the recording to 33 and 34. That's where this is right now. So that 33 and 34 is whatever output I have selected in that record menu from earlier. So right now I just have it set to my stereo left and right. So 33 and 34 is just recording my full stereo mix. So you can keep that in mind. If you do want that, you can use that. If you don't want to worry about that, then all you really need to do is channels 1 through 32, and don't worry about 33 and 34. And I have them all record enabled. So now I can just push the R button on my keyboard, and there it is. It's off and running. It's recording all 34 channels that I have set up simultaneously so I can capture that live recording of whatever group is performing. And then as soon as I want to stop, I'm going to hit spacebar. Now, we went through that whole process, and it was pretty easy with some of the things that I showed you, but there's another way to make it even easier. So now, once I've set this up once, I can save this as a template inside of Logic. Now to do that, I'm gonna go back up to where it says File at the top left. And now I wanna do Save as Template. I can tap on that, and this menu pops up here, and these are my project templates. So now I can hit Yamaha TF Recording. And now I'll have that as a template. If I hit save, and the next time I open up Logic Pro, I can select create a new project from a template, and then I need to pick my Yamaha TF template, and this will all be set up ready to go for you every time you want to make a recording with the Yamaha TF. So now you could be set up in seconds, ready to record on your computer. Now, the last part of this, we talked about that virtual sound check. To make that happen, I already have everything set up properly in Logic through everything that we talked about. So I have channel 1 is taking input 1, and it's also going to output 1. Now I need to go back to the Yamaha TF, and I can really quickly change all of my inputs to be USB rather than whatever it was set to. I just need to click the menu button and then tap all inputs as USB. And now if I go back and I push play on my Logic project, it's going to send all of these channels back into the TF, and I can check it through my outputs in my venue to do that virtual sound check. So now I can dial in all of my mixer settings with my EQs and my compressors and all of that to get it dialed in without anybody needing to stand there on stage and play. And now we have the hard difficulty option. So this is the one that's the most complex to set up and takes the most knowledge and know-how to be able to get it happening correctly, because we're going to be using Dante to make this recording. Now for the gear you'll need, outside of the Yamaha TF, you'll need the NY64D expansion card that slides into the back of the TF. You're going to need an Ethernet cable that's Cat5e or better. You're going to need a computer with mixing software on it. So you can use Windows or Mac OS for this once again, just like the previous option. And I'll still be using Mac OS with Logic Pro to set all of this up in this video. You'll also need Dante controller and Dante virtual sound card on the computer that you're going to be using the mixing software on. So Dante virtual sound card is a paid piece of software from the Dante website. That's what's going to allow us to take the audio from the Yamaha TF and get it into the computer. And then Dante controller is a free piece of software also from the Dante website, and that's just going to allow us to do all of the patching from the Yamaha TF into our computer. So that's what's going to allow us to route all of the channels how we want them into our mixing software. And then that's really it at the Yamaha TF. It does use the same direct outs that we talked about in the previous option, so you just want to make sure that the direct outs are set up the way you want them on the Yamaha TF. Now we're going to finish the rest of this process at the computer. Now I'm here at my computer, ready to set everything up in Dante. First thing I want to do is open up Dante Virtual Sound Card, and here's what the window looks like. For audio channels right now, I'm just going to leave it at 64 by 64, and then from there I'm going to hit start, and that should activate it as an audio interface. So at that point, your DAW should see it as a selectable audio interface. So now I'm going to double check inside of Logic by opening up my audio settings, pressing Command, go to audio, and there it is, my Dante Virtual Sound Card as my input device inside of Logic. I'm going to leave it as only the input device for now, and then close that. Next thing we're going to do is look inside of Dante controller. That's going to allow us to set up all of the patching to get everything from the TF into my computer. Now I'm inside of Dante controller. You should be able to see both of your devices right now, the NY64D and whatever computer that you're using. If you don't, you just want to check your Ethernet cables and make sure all of that stuff is set up properly before they're going to appear inside of here. So the way I have this set up, I have an Ethernet cable plugged into the NY64D card on the back of the Yamaha TF, and then that's connected into a network switch. I also have my computer plugged into that same network switch, which is what allows them to communicate with each other. It is possible to connect them directly if you just want to go Ethernet cable from the NY64D directly to your computer. But if you use a network switch, that allows you to connect multiple computers into this same Dante network and access these same inputs. So this is going to open up sort of a matrix grid that's going to allow me to do all of my patching. If you've done patching with inputs before, this is going to look pretty familiar. So looking here with my receivers, which is going to be my computer, that's what's receiving audio. And then the top part is transmitters. So I'm going to have the NY64D, that's transmitting the audio to my computer that's receiving it. So I want to line those up, and then I'm going to click the plus button, and that's going to open up this grid. Here's the fun part, is you can patch this any way that you want. Here at the top, these are the direct outs from the Yamaha TF. And on the left side are the inputs from Dante Virtual Sound Card that I can use. For now, I've kept it pretty simple, so I just did 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3 all the way down, and that's what creates this straight diagonal all the way down. But if you want to do anything else, you're free to patch it any other way that you want into your Logic software. You just want to make sure you're keeping note of how things are patched, since it'll be a little bit less straightforward than just 1 to 1 and 2 to 2. Now, once I have that done, I can leave Dante controller and I can go into Logic Pro. At this point, the setup inside of Logic Pro is basically identical to what we did earlier when we were using the Yamaha TF as the audio interface. I have one audio channel created, so I just need to create 31 more of those. Clicking the plus button, going through similar process. I have input 2, since that's where I'm going to start now. I'm going to do ascending, and then device is Dante Virtual Sound Card. And then for this setup, I'm going to do output 1, 2. And then I'm going to click record enable. And now I need 31 of these to be created. And I hit create. And there we go. There's all of the rest of my 31 channels that I just created. Now, to see if I've done this correctly, I still have a microphone plugged into channel 1 on my Yamaha TF. I can tap it. That's my microphone. That's all patched through using the Dante and the NY64D card on the Yamaha TF. So obviously this is the most tricky way to set it up, but in my opinion, I think this is one of the best ways to do it. What makes this better is you can essentially connect a bunch of computers and do this all at the same time in tandem. So maybe in the setup for whatever band or ensemble or whatever group you have, if they are using the Yamaha TF as an audio interface, that would stop you from connecting another computer into the TF so that you can make this multi-track recording. But if you use this method by connecting into the Dante card on the back of the TF, then that allows you to have one computer using the Yamaha TF as an audio interface, and then you can plug a second computer just to do this multi-track recording. And at that point, you can even attach a third computer as redundancy and have two of them simultaneously doing multi-track recording, just to make sure in case one has an issue, you have a secondary computer still doing that same multi-track recording. That's the really nice part about using Dante like this, is the audio is sent over a network. So you can use network switches and have multiple computers accessing the same set of inputs from your mixer. This is the most costly method because you need that NY64D card, you need Dante Virtual Soundcard, which costs money, and you need a network switch and Ethernet cables to be able to connect all of this together. But still think this is one of the best ways to do audio recording using the Yamaha TF. So that's it for this video. If this was helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you give this video a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.